Investigating unit has revealed that over 2 billion rand was siphoned by criminal syndicates from the Tembisa Hospital. The SIU says it's identified contracts that were awarded to companies that are linked to alleged kingpin Vusumuzi Kat Matlala and controversial businessman Hangwani Maumela. Now, Veronica Makhwadi joins us live with more on the SIU's interim findings. Veronica, very good afternoon to you. So what's quite concerning is that Babita Deokaran exposed a lot of what is now this alleged rot at Tembisa Hospital in 2021. But now, 4 years post her death, we are seeing that money that has been siphoned and looted from that hospital has more than doubled from that 850 million rand.
Certainly, Katlego. In fact, if there was ever an example of how entrenched and how far-reaching corruption is in South Africa, the Tembisa Hospital saga really does speak volumes. In fact, it's bad enough to siphon money from the state and for public institutions, but essentially to infiltrate healthcare systems, health facilities, well, that's almost unforgivable. And the SIU, of course, led by Advocate Andy Mutobi, really laid bare the kind of ruthlessness in terms of the looting spree that was taking place at this very facility. Initially, as you've mentioned, Babita Deokaran flagging that 850 million. But through this investigation, which has taken some time, but we now see why, they've been able to uncover more than 2 billion rand. And the SIU, in fact, saying that that amount does not stop there. They are still continuing with the investigation, and they do believe that, in fact, there are more individuals behind this, and there is far more money as well that has been taken from the state and this public health facility, in fact. But the SIU today, not very vague in terms of its interim report, quite detailed in the fact that this time they were naming the syndicates, they were identifying the names and the faces behind this mass looting, and also even implicating and speaking to the rot within the officials within Tembisa, as well as the Gauteng Health Department. And I'm going to bring in the SIU spokesperson, Kaizer Kganyago, just to talk to us a little bit more about the findings. It was a very detailed report. In fact, at some point, an advocate there at some point saying it's not only disturbing, but it's quite ruthless in terms of the looting that took place here.
Definitely. That is why we call the Tembisa heist, basically, because you must remember 2 billion rand amounts to basically the budget of this whole hospital. And one line item was able to give away 2 billion rand to the hands of the ruthless people who went around and bought expensive cars and bought houses. And that to us is a sign that people did not care. And in the main, it was very clear that most of these things that were purportedly bought were never delivered to the hospital. But there were officials who signed in to say that they were delivered. There were people in the wards who signed to say, we received them and we used them. Because in the main, it was those substances or materials that are durable, they are going to be used immediately. Therefore, you know that it's not easy to go into a storeroom and say, where are the things? We need to see them because they would have been used. They are injections, it's medication. But therefore, that for us is a very clear indication. But also, the biggest thing for us is to have officials having received 122 million rand in kickbacks. That is a sign of how big this thing is, where one official, for example, got 30 million rand alone and at the lowest level. And that for us was a clear indication that officials would have done a lot to aid these people, because without the officials, this would not have happened.
And let's paint a clearer picture of those officials. There was a point where the advocate was speaking about just some of the roles these officials played. I think sometimes when we say officials, it's a bit vague. You know, is this a senior official? Is this a mid-level official? It went as far as someone as ordinary as a clerk.
No, definitely. You will see that the people who are working in the storeroom are at the levels that are lower, but they are the ones who sign. The people who are in SCM at the lowest level, they are the ones who have done these transactions. When you decentralize and say people in the hospital must do procurement themselves, they position themselves in that space so that they do the things that they do. And therefore, it is very clear with this investigation that the majority of the people that are involved are the people at the lower levels. But we are also going to look at the higher levels to say, what didn't you say something when you start seeing this hike happening, and who was supposed to do what? Because that also has to be taken into account. But in this particular instance, we're very clear. It's people at lower levels, and they've made these transactions, they've signed for all of these things. And what is very interesting is 15 officials who got 122 million. And all these 15 are featuring in all the syndicates to show that it is something that they do all the time. If they were in one syndicate, we would think they are just associated with that. But it's clear it's something that was premeditated.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. Kaizer Kganyago, the spokesperson of the SIU investigation, they're speaking about those syndicates, 3 to be exact, Katlego. Amongst them, Hangwani Maumela is one of the syndicates, Rudolf Mazibuko, one of the syndicates, and we know them having ties to murder-accused and tender kingpin Vusimusi Cat Matlala. This was, of course, revealed during this detailed report, and also pointing to very dangerous individuals as well that were behind the siphoning of this money. But very quickly, Katlego, if you would just allow me to bring in the union spokesperson, the chairperson rather, of Denosa in Gauteng. Very quickly, Ntate, your reaction to this amount, that 2 billion, knowing that that was 2 billion that could have been spent in improving this hospital.
Thank you very much. I welcome the report, and however, it comes with concerns, specifically on the administrative or executive of the department within Gauteng. Firstly, in 2020, we would have seen 126 that was flagged on Bandile Masuku, and later Nomatemba took over. And then at that particular time, that's when you saw the spike of this corruption happening within the department. However, there was nothing that was done. And on senior people, there was never any flag of a senior person who's been involved in this corruption. We only flag those who are on the lower level. That's why we don't take the stance that says that only junior officials must be flagged on the report, but also it must involve those who are on a higher seat and higher level. Because of this corruption, it starts from above there and it goes down. So those irregular processes that are happening within the department, they must face the might of law and they must be dealt with immediate effect.
Thank you so much for your reaction. Katlego, it's back to you in studio as we continue as well to get more reaction following this startling interim report. Only the beginning in regards to the SIU's investigation.
That's true, Veronica, only the beginning, but we surely do hope that the turning wheels of justice will get South Africans not only the answers that they need, but also just some of the repercussions to those many syndicates that you have now mentioned. Now,